Says ex Wallkill Bethelite here. And I remember when I first got to Bethel, I hadn't gotten my assignment yet. And that's a big deal because here you are at Bethel. And when you go to eat at the table with different friends, pretty much, you don't know anybody. And one of the first things that they always ask is, where do you work? That's a pretty standard question at Bethel. Who are you? Where do you work? So, to a degree, you're kind of gauged by your job assignment, what that is, how important that is. And I remember a guy who I guess his brother or some relative worked at Bethel. And it was very interesting because he was talking to a Bethel elder. It was a couple of Bethel elders, and we hadn't gotten our assignments yet. And he comes over and, he introduced himself to the brothers and he says, well, let's say it's his brother, my brother works here and he works in Bethel office. And I'm just quoting what he said. And ever since we were little, it seems like wherever he goes, I follow in his footsteps. So I guess he's hinting at where he wants to work. He wants to work at Bethel office. And you can imagine somebody that just gets to Bethel and he's hinting at where he wants to work. Just seemed pretty ridiculous. And I'm just standing here, watching this unfold. And the brother kind of spurted out, you're going to be a waiter. And if you could have seen the young Bethelite, his whole face just turned red. He drops his head and his whole face just turns red. And I mean, hey, he was a waiter. When we would have lunch, that's the guy that would be bringing the bowl to the table and then rushing off with the empty bowl and coming back with, he was definitely a waiter. And I ended up being assigned to work in shipping and receiving, and that is across the street from the main complex in the food warehouse. And my overseer, the department overseer, was Pat Spears, and he was the guy that played in the video. Young people ask how to make real friends. And he, to let you know who it was, he's the guy in the video that's the teacher. And he says, I was up all night or all weekend reading your poems. And he invites people up to read their poems. And he's like, next up, Miss Sarah Matthews. I don't know if you guys have watched that video, the Young People Ask video, or if you still have it. But that's the guy that was my overseer at Bethel. And one of the first issues that I remember having is that there was a particular guy on the crew that didn't seem to want to be at Bethel. I think he kind of mentioned something about his parents wanting him to go, and that being the only reason why he was there. However, the crew overseer really liked the guy. Really, really liked the guy. And really wanted him to do well. Now, here I am. It's like my dream to go to Bethel. And I'm working as hard as I humanly possibly could to learn everything and to do everything as perfectly as I could. And then here you have a guy next to me that just could care less. And the overseer wanted to train him and have him train me. And this process was a little frustrating because the overseer would never finish training him because he didn't really care to really learn anything or pick it up and become proficient at it enough to be able to train me. And I remember my department overseer, not Patrick, but my crew overseer, seemingly having an issue with race. And this blew my mind. How on earth can you be a Jehovah's Witness and have issues with race? And it was an issue where I worked. The place I work now, which, the term worldly would be used to describe it, it's not as big of an issue there as it was at Bethel. It was an issue where I worked. And it was bad enough to where my crew overseer would just openly make jokes about racial issues. And I remember him walking by me, and what he said pretty much pissed me off. He said, and I'm going to quote him because this is burned in my mind. He's walking by me, he sees me, and he says, "It's not your fault. God made you that way." By that way, he meant race. And that went right in context with what he joked about pretty much on a regular basis. And I overheard a conversation in the locker room. I'm going into the locker room after work to shower and get ready and to leave work. And I walk in and two guys are talking. And two of the white brothers there, young guys. I'm thinking they were probably maybe 24 at the most. And one guy says, and I quote, and I walked into the middle of the conversation, so I don't know what was said before or after, but the guy's like, "I'm with them. I am KKK all the way, baby." That's quoting him. Then they notice that I walk in, and then they're, quiet after that. And this is not my crew. This is a different guy from my crew overseer. This guy wasn't working in my direct crew at the time. He was working in cheese processing, which was in the same building. So he worked with the pasteurizer and all kinds of things like that. And he obviously had an issue with it. And this is something that bothered me a lot because I couldn't get my mind past how can someone know the Bible and yet still have a problem with race. And I'm being generous in saying have a problem with race, and I didn't say racist. I mean, that's a strong word. That's a strong word, and I'm just trying to be fair here. So I'm saying they had issues with race, and it got to the point where I finally went and spoke to my department overseer about the issue. Now, the problem when you do this is that the department overseer is going to talk to the crew overseer and apparently pretty much tell the crew overseer what was said and who said it. And then the crew overseer goes back and lets the crew know, you know what I mean, that they have, quote unquote, let's say a snitch or whatever on the crew. And this sounds worldly. What I'm telling you sounds worldly, but that is how it is there. And then you have this big target on your back. Now, I would, you know, try really hard to get along with everyone there. And there was a guy there that was, and this is the guy that could care less, but was kind of placed above me to where I couldn't learn anything because he wouldn't ever learn anything to where he could teach it to me as far as the different products that we worked with, where things went, and things like that. And he would horseplay, and he would horseplay even when tours were walking through. A tour would walk through, and this guy would run up, pushing me in the back and everything else. And I'm like, hey, we got a tour here, you know what I mean? And you're acting crazy. And he did not care. He did not care at all. And I remember him picking up a wooden piece of a pallet. This is kind of like a truck dock, so we had a lot of pallets there, wooden pallets. So he picks up a piece of a pallet, a big piece, and literally swings the thing at me. And a part of it went flying off of it. It broke as he was swinging it. And went flying across the warehouse. And I couldn't believe that this guy did that. It was bad enough that I'm overhearing what I overheard when I walked into the locker room. It's bad enough that I'm hearing what I'm hearing coming from a crew overseer that was an elder. He was an elder. Now, he wasn't a Bethel elder, but he was an elder at the congregation that he was assigned to. It's bad enough that I'm hearing that. It's bad enough that I can't go and talk to the department overseer because nothing technically is going to get done about it. And the only thing that's going to happen is, you know, people are going to hate you now because you went and told. Now I'm getting things swung at me. So it really bothered me to the point where, and this is ongoing. This is ongoing. Where there's a bunch of harassment or teasing, and it just never stopped. I had a little notepad, and I would write down the different trucks that we had coming in and on what day, what the products were, kind of where they went, different things like that, so that at the beginning of the day, I could look over it. Okay, this is coming. It normally comes at this time. You know, so I have a mental picture of what to do that day, which was important, especially for me starting off. Well, I'd, be looking through it, and the kid would grab it out of my hand and go running all over the place with it. And, of course, I'm chasing them like, give me back my notepad. I worked hard taking notes on every little detail. so that I could do my job effectively. And this kid is just running around being silly. There was an area in another building where we would work sometimes, and there was bags of flaxseed, bags of sunflower seed, bags of almost everything you could imagine, and there were bags of flour. Well, the guy is inside of a cooler with these items with another brother, and I'm outside of the cooler looking at a clipboard trying to learn the location of different things. And I see a brother come running out of the cooler with, this kid running behind him with a bag of flour. The kid is chasing him, and believe it or not, he throws a bag of flour. And this bag, of course, explodes, bursts everywhere. And the two of them are wrestling around and throwing at each other. And I'm thinking, are we here to work or act silly? Now, that you want to be balanced and have fun, which I did. Because in between trucks, let's say a truck was late and we had some layover time without anything to do while we're waiting on the truck. Well, somebody would grab a soccer ball and we'd play soccer and have fun. I'd play too. Somebody may grab a baseball and we might play stickball inside the warehouse. And I play too. It's perfectly fine. But I'm not throwing the food around that we're supposed to be sending and shipping to different facilities. And we have to walk back from where we were back to the main truck dock. And this kid is covered in flour. And the other brother is also covered in flour. And the other brother is kind of worried, oh my goodness, what is the officer going to say? And of course, I'm perfectly clean. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not worried about it because I'm over here working. Well, we get over there, and the crew overseer, I don't think this ever gets to the department overseer, so I don't know what he would have said about it. But we get over there, and the crew overseer looks at him, grabs one, this guy's a pretty strong guy, grabs one with one arm, grabs the other with the other arm, picks them up, and bams them down onto a pallet with bags of either flour or oats or something. And you got more stuff flying all over the place. I mean, it was ridiculous. So here I am trying to work hard, and the only people that are being noticed are the people that are screwing around, playing around, throwing things, and I'm like, we're here to serve Jehovah. We're on Jehovah's time here. I'm fine with playing soccer and doing things when we don't have work, but when we have work, why not? Let's do it. So we had so much time to get our truck driving license, not like CDL, but like pallet trucks that we would drive, because it's kind of hard to work in a warehouse and offload trucks and load trucks if you don't have a pallet truck, and you had to get a license to be able to drive it. And I remember this kid being sent to go and test for it. He got sent to Brooklyn to get tests for it, and got sent back, and he didn't get it. And it was amazing. So they sent me. They were going to have to reschedule him. They sent me, and there was a book that you had to study to learn all the rules, learn the parts of the truck, pallet trucks and the forklifts and things like that. And I'm not going to exaggerate. I memorized this book the same way you would study the Watchtower or Awake or anything like that, or text. At the end of the day and at the beginning of the day, I'm going over this book. When I'm not at work, I'm going over this book, because I'm not about to get sent to go get a license for something that I need for my assignment to serve Jehovah and mess around and not get it. And if you don't get it, that means you're running beside someone who is on a pallet truck or on a forklift. You can't drive it, but you can run beside it and help pick up some boxes and put it on a pallet so they can pick it up with the forklift, which is fine, but you're not supposed to be doing that for an extended period of time. They need you to be able to learn how to operate that sort of equipment. And I remember getting that certification. I actually passed the test because I memorized that book. I mean, I read it out loud. I memorized that book. Got my certification, came back to work, and here I am, the guy they don't want to train. Here I am, certified to drive forklifts, pallet trucks, and all kinds of things. And then here this other kid is that everybody likes but goofs off all the time. And he can't drive anything. So now they kind of have to train me. And most guys on the crew didn't have a problem with it, but it was the crew overseer that had an issue with race that still didn't want to do it. And then it was obvious. I've got my certifications and everything. That kid got there maybe a month before I did. True, but he can't do anything. He can't drive anything. I can. So now explain to me why the overseer didn't want to train me then, if it wasn't race. And he's making racial jokes all the time. So am I wrong in putting two and two together and saying he's probably a racist and he's at Bethel and he's an elder? He didn't want to train me until I talked to Brother Rayford about all the stuff that was going on. And Brother Rayford talked to me and he told me to go back and tell him that I spoke to Brother Rayford and that, and he said to, speak politely and respectfully and ask to be trained, which I did. And he finally started to train me and work with me. And that was just ridiculous to have to go through something like that at quote unquote the house of God. This is where Jehovah's Spirit is. And everyone there is a witness. Everyone there is a witness. And you're dealing with foolishness, total foolishness. It's shocking to read about it and hear about it your whole life. You hear about Bethel. And this is the example for the whole organization. Those brothers at Bethel, man, they really are on top of their stuff, is what you hear your whole life. And then you get there and it's the opposite. Now, I'm not, everyone isn't screwing around, I'm sure, but a good portion of them are. And I've got like a gazillion stories from Bethel that I can tell. But that will be all for tonight. This is X Walk Kill Bethelite signing out. Everybody have a good night or a good day.